Okay, I'm about 1,000 points into my underground Kitbash Space Marine chapter, so I probably shouldn't start another army, right? Yeah, let's start another army. I was inspired to start them by this piece of Warhammer art, and it is beautiful. Look at this big beefy boy. So utilitarian, they love iron, they love hazard stripes. Let's get them started by making a Terminator squad. And as usual, I can't do this in a normal way, so I'm going to kitbash these two kits. Your Chaos Space Marine Terminators and the Cataphracti, I think that's what they're called, Terminators from the Horus Heresy 30k game. These guys are used a lot for 40k Iron Warriors armies, as Iron Warriors aren't as mutated. I do want to make them a little bit bigger though, so I'm going to take the saddest little chunk of green stuff you've ever seen and shove it underneath the torso. Gives some height, makes them a little bit more imposing. This first guy is going to have a Reaper cannon, and I don't want him just holding it. I want lots of unnecessary and cool weapons strapped to these guys, so we're going to kind of do a little bit of surgery, chop it off, and find a nice place to stick it on his back. And since I was so inspired by that piece of art, I went and got a lot of bits. Mostly saws. Got a lot of them from orcs, from Sister of Battle mech things, and from Gene Stealer cults. I got a lot of saws. This one looks like a nice size and should pair perfectly with this flamer arm. Little chop here, little chop there. Looking flush, and sand. Not really overthinking it, just using some, to me, extra thin plastic cement to kind of just force it to stay together. Now I gotta figure out how I want it to pose. I technically need a bolter in the other arm, but just holding it out one arm is not cool. I want to do the crossbody thing, like in the picture. Nothing a little more surgery won't fix. Cut off his little shoulder there. Try and attach it to the side. Hopefully we can get a bit more of an angle on there. Still too close to the body. Shove some more green stuff in. Shove some super glue. And hope that it all works. It's okay, I have ways to cover up all this mess later. Now that we got the saw across his body, he needs to support it with the other hand. I'm going to take this bolter, chop it off, and have it supported from this side. The hand is now at the wrong angle though, so we need to carefully kind of saw and snip this off, and rotate it about 45 degrees to get it more of a horizontal position. Now that it's sticking away from the saw body itself, we can grab any old little bit and kind of just make a handle for him. And this is how I know my hair is getting too long. It keeps getting in the shot. Next up, we have our guy with his twin accursed weapons. Originally, I just used the weapons that came in the Chaos Space Marine kit, but I decided to use a couple more of these saws. I think these are from the Penitent engine. Okay, we're gonna get a little silly, but we're chopping everything off and just giving him two saw arms. He's gonna be awesome. And then for the other Terminators, I just go with a Power Fist and Bolter. On the Cataphracti Terminators, they have two different shoulder pads, a big one and a smaller one. I'm gonna get rid of the smaller one and replace all the little leather straps that come out with this chain. This was a long and arduous process. Pull a little chain out, cut it, and then glue it into place, covering the whole shoulder area and hopefully the gap where the two pieces were glued together. It's okay looking. It'll look much better when primed and painted, I'm sure. These things always do, especially when kit bashing with different materials. Priming them brings them all together. I just didn't really care for the leather strap look, and I wanted these chains because these are my Iron Warriors and they like chains. Now for the bases, we're going to be going with rocky, dusty, Martian-like landscapes. My Iron Warriors work closely with the Dark Mechanicum, and we're going to be using a lot of different units from either the 40k Adeptus Mechanicus or the 30k Adeptum Mechanicum. Keep it simple, just grab some cork, flatten down one side, glue it down, and then use some dirt and sand texture paste all around it. Most 30k infantry models are smaller than the 40k counterparts, so anything I can do to boost their height a bit, make them look a little bit less shrimpy, I'm all for. Now I've had these 3D printed capes for a long time. I think they're from like a Black Templar project from years ago. Never used them, but I think they fit perfectly on these Terminators. So let's glue them into place and use a little bit of green stuff to kind of secure them. Kind of shoved into the back there. You can kind of see it, but it won't be too bad once everything back there is painted black. And like I said, now the fun part is priming, because it brings all the different elements together. I kept the shoulder pads on a separate sprue, glued them down because these guys will have hazard stripes on them. And if you know me, you know I like dry brushing metallics. I think it looks way better in pretty much most cases. So we start with a nice dark metallic, dry brush that up, then dry brush on some dark aluminum, and then stipple/dry brush on some bright aluminum. Really want to give them just a messy metal look. Going very simplistic on these guys. They are Iron Warriors. They're made of iron. Other parts of the armor will have hazard stripes on them, like the Power Fists. So I go ahead and base those with white just to start. Now you got to start masking everything so I can airbrush, because base coating white with a brush and yellow, it's not fun. I use some putty to kind of mask off the entire model, and then start airbrushing on some white. I do the same thing to the shoulder pads. Once the white is nice and crisp and pure, airbrush on some Imperial Fist contrast paint over top. Now begins the long, frustrating task of taking this very thin 2mm masking tape, cutting it up into strips, and applying these on the power fists and shoulders. It's satisfying, but also kind of annoying. Again, I'm doing a very messy army like all my armies, so they don't have to be perfect. I'm not gonna lose my mind if a little bit of paint leaks underneath. It's all dirty, damaged armor anyway that I'm gonna sponge even more dirt and damage on, so it's okay. And it's just fun. You mask these up, airbrush them black, peel them off. It's a very satisfying process. They're looking pretty good. Some of the chain is sticking up a bit too much. I could try and grind it down, but I don't think it's too bad looking. It's all a learning process because this is the first unit for the army, so things to keep in mind in the future, especially because I want a lot more Terminators in this army. I re-base coat everything in black, and then some metallics, and then to do the trim, I take some Agros Dunes contrast paint, and apply that all over the trim. Gives a nice brassy, coppery, bronzy, goldy trim color, and it's contrast paint so it nicely settles in the recesses. Let's do something simple but interesting with these capes. We're going to do some sponging to give them some nice texture. They'll look great next to the metallics. We base coat them black and then start sponging on some smoky black, and then some ash gray, and then some London gray, just a little bit brighter, doing less and less every time, leaving the black in the recesses. I also forgot about my Mr. Reaper autocannon. I couldn't really get it to look good on his shoulder, so we just drilled right into his power pack and attached it on the top. It looks pretty good. And then take my secret ingredient. I didn't want to have to deal with oils with these guys. A nice black oil wash would be good, but I'm oiled out. I wanted something simple and not gross and annoying to work with, so we take some Rattling Grime contrast paint, mix it 50-50 with just water, and slop it all over. Goes in the recesses, stains the hazard stripes in a nice cohesive way. I like it. And now it's time to get a bit more experimental. I really want to get better at making things glow, whether through plasma weaponry or just heat. And I think Iron Warriors are the perfect guys to get some nice hot guns and some molten melee weapons. So we're going to try and learn to do that today. I got some AK Interactive inks, some liquid pigments, some fluorescent paints. We're just going to try and figure it out. I'm sure I'll be able to refine it on further models in the future. It's a learning process for me. First we take all of the weapons, melee and ranged, and do a nice little airbrushing of this scarlet ink color all over to be the coolest part of the metal. Then we take some white ink, we apply it to the recesses of the guns and the saws. After that dries, we airbrush on some white ink all over to prepare it for some fluorescent orange paint, which we airbrush in very thin layers. Fluorescent paint is very weird and goopy and sticky, and you just gotta go real slow with it. It's not gonna look good at the beginning, but if you're slow and patient, it'll build up into some ridiculously vibrant colors. I mean, just look at that orange. Oh, so good. Now that we got it nice and hot, I take some whole red, very dark red, and kind of lightly dry brush that around. I go back and forth on this a lot, kind of reapplying it and then unapplying by spraying it some more. Just trying to imagine how the metal would be cooling, not going for super realistic, and that's okay, because even if it's not, I can just say it's warp nonsense. It's warp magic that, you know, makes things molten and metal and weird. It's the perfect out. A wizard did it. And we take these things, never used them before. They're liquid pigments. They're enamel based, so they are removable. I just kind of put this light orange liquid pigment right into the hottest parts. And it's nice because it settles in the recesses, and if you do too much, you can just pull it away because it gets real bright when it dries. It's like the opposite of acrylic paints. It's super weird to work with, but I'm having fun learning it. Now that that's dried in the recesses, I want to cool off the metal some more. So I take some more of that whole red, as well as some black and some metallics, and just kind of start applying it, especially on the saw, on the outer edges, trying to see that's where the metal's cooling. Again, I did this in a very haphazard way because I'm learning. It's kind of hard to present. After hours of going back and forth, I think we got a nice result on all the different weapons that I'm pretty proud of. Some of them should probably cool off a bit more towards the outer edges, but I didn't want to ruin the nice glows I had. So it's something to pay attention to and work on in the future. I paint the bases with some dark red and browns, and then take this very messy secret ingredient, red oxide pigment powder, and just brush it all over. This is Mars in a bottle. Get it all over the legs to blend them in, and it's dusty and silly and it's everywhere. And if you get it on your hands or on your desk, it's gonna be there forever. It's like glitter. And there we go, my first squad of Terminators for my Iron Warriors Dark Mechanicum army is done. Looking at it now, there's some things I can go back and change. I could use a little bit more contrast on the chains. Just a nice black wash will help with that. But the glowing weapons are looking pretty cool. I like how simple they are. They're not super simple, but they're relatively easy to paint up. And it's just a ton of fun. Working with metallics and dry brushing and pigment powders and all this. It's a fun time. I love how the pigment powders look on the cape too. I forgot to mention that. But don't worry, still going to be working on the main Space Marine force, the Raiders of the Rock. These are just a nice in-between project, you know? So I don't lose focus. I can focus on two things at once. I don't get too bored of doing one thing. I don't know. It's kind of how my brain works. I like to work on two armies at once. I'm excited to mess around with these guys, do some more Dark Mechanicum stuff. Like I'm going to be using some of the robots from 30k to proxies like Forge Fiends and Hell Brutes. It'll be a fun time. And Hazard Stripes are just cool. Do them on some bigger vehicles will be a ton of fun. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any tips and tricks, leave a like if you enjoyed. See you next time. Bye.